I'm Louise Pasterfield from Sponge UK, and this is Kate Pasterfield. We're going to be delivering a talk today about e-learning is like eating. 4 ways to feed your employees with a healthy diet. We thought this would be a kind of a fun topic because it's the start of the new year, and if any of you have been reading any of the Sunday papers, you can't miss all those kind of new diets that we should be starting and do all the proper things we should be doing that we didn't do over Christmas and the holidays. So we just thought it would be kind of fun. So to begin, sorry, I'm just going to press the right buttons. Okay, that work? Can I use the machine to press the next button because this isn't working? Is that all right? Put that down. Okay, cool. First of all, just to begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about us and who we are. We're specialists in custom-made e-learning courses, so we only do bespoke e-learning. And we help large organizations and we turn their training into absorbing e-learning programs. And by that I mean that we like them to be able to apply it after they've done the e-learning to the workplace. So we really want to make it memorable and engaging. In terms of our clients, we work with clients around the world, in the UK, Europe, and USA in particular. And this talk really is based on ideas that we've had working with our clients. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to take away some ideas and tips as we go through. So to begin with, just to introduce the topic, I just want you to reflect now, what e-learning are you serving up to your employees at the moment? So just sort of think about what it is you're giving them, how long it is, maybe what it looks like. And I'm just going to get you to think about a few things with some images. The first of all is it the same old, same old? Are you just giving them chips? I mean, we all like chips to some extent, but if you just have chips every day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, it's not very exciting. So we do like things other than carbohydrates. So it's really just thinking, are we giving them any variety? The second thing is, maybe it's leftovers, maybe it's a little bit out of date and it's been knocking around a while and, you just haven't got around to doing it, but, it's maybe 5, 6 years old and you really need to maybe think about it. And it's about as appetizing as a leftover piece of pizza the next morning when it's cold. The third thing is, are you trying to feed meat to a vegetarian? So what's this about? One of the biggest turnoffs for learners is when they get e-learning that doesn't have anything to do with them. So say you work in the commercial department, but the e-learning is aimed at procurement, or it's not relevant to them in their role. So it's a little bit like trying to feed meat to a vegetarian. They're not going to want to eat it. So it's about making it role specific. And the fourth thing is, are you trying to feed your learners too much? Again, one of the biggest things that really get to learners is if they have too much learning to do all in one go. And it's a bit like eating an enormous sandwich. It's very difficult to fit in your mouth. Okay, but when we get it right, when we get it spot on, it's like a healthy e-learning diet, and what it does is it supercharges your workforce. And that has benefits like increased sales or a compliant workforce, accelerated productivity, enhanced staff effectiveness. Those are all really very powerful things. So it's really worth us just reflecting on really how we can make this a varied and healthy diet. So it's a bit like Popeye and spinach. Okay. So what we're going to be covering today is a varied diet and creating variety in our e-learning. We're going to be looking at eating at irregular intervals. So we're going to be talking about chunking. We're going to be talking about eating anywhere. That can be multi-device e-learning particularly. And promoting the menu. We need to know what's on the menu. So marketing and campaigns. So that's what we're going to be going through today. So I'm going to begin the first topic now. Oh, before I forget, don't forget if you would like a summary copy of this presentation today, we've given you some evaluation forms. So if you wouldn't mind filling that in before you go, if you fill that in and give us your email address that we can read, we'll then send you a copy of this presentation. Okay, well, we welcome your feedback. First of all, let's talk about variety. Creating variety in our e-learning. And variety really is the spice of life. And just imagine, when you go to a buffet or a banquet and you see all that food out there, and you think, oh gosh, what am I going to have? And doesn't that look nice? And can I come back for 7 seconds? It's just, it's fun. So variety is the spice of life. So what different things can we do in our e-learning that may help with variety? I'm going to focus on 3 particular things that I think can really add some variety in e-learning. One is looking at video and photography. The other is looking at illustration and considering that. And the third is using online workbooks and notebooks. So I'm just going to take you through those. I think first of all, video, we love it. Over 50% of internet traffic is now video, and with improved streaming so that you can download it, it's becoming more and more popular. It also can be cheaper to produce. Now I say it can be because if you want a Hollywood production, you're going to pay for a Hollywood production. But if you want to pick up your iPhone and do some, videos of people around your office or wherever, you can do that as well. And that can be considerably cheaper. So just stop and think, who have you shared a video link with recently? That just goes to show how kind of viral it is and how we all really like video. So just for some ideas of how you can use video, you can use it, first of all, with vox pop, or the other term for that really is voice of the people. That's what it actually means. In this example here for Sport England, we were actually teaching them about the values and the values of the organization. So what better way to do it than to get people explaining how they live those values and what they're doing in their daily jobs. This is a video wall. You click onto the people and you can hear what they have to say. And it's genuine, it's honest. You can also do scenario videos. This here is an example for GKN. It was anti-competition law, and they had to learn about what they could and couldn't say to their competitors. So we created a scenario with actors, and we videoed. We sort of did a sort of a trade show, what you could say, and we based it like that. So that worked quite well with scenarios using actors. You can also use video as reusable assets, and this is actually really quite a good thing to do. So for example, Norfolk County Council wanted to train their care workers in how to lift and handle their people. So we did it all pretty much video-based in the e-learning. But then we also took the videos and put them on YouTube so that if, say, a carer was about to go into a home and lift and handle someone, they could access it on their mobile via YouTube. So just think about how you can reuse it. The other thing I wanted to mention about video is this is becoming more and more popular. There's more software out there, and you can add things with interactive videos. So on the screen, there's a few examples of how you can stop in a video and click and download some product info, or you can have a little quiz in the middle of it. Or, for example, you can do a table of contents. It's quite useful with videos. You can actually go to the section that you want to view. Or finally, you can do things like draw on video. It looks like great fun to me. Just moving along now, another relevant topic is photography. I mean, obviously we're all familiar with photography and e-learning. But one of the things we come across is people spend a lot of time developing their content, making sure they've written scenarios, there's interactions, there's variety, there's reflection, but they put photographs in that aren't very compelling or relevant. And you can do things like organize photo shoots. And the advantage of that is that they will be specific, they'll be real people, you can create situational scenes. You can use real people in your offices, or you can actually get actors in. But this is an example on the screen here for NHS Wales. It's Stephanie's story, and it's her experience in NHS Wales. We've actually taken a picture of a situation, and you can sort of see what it's like. Whereas the picture on the bottom is a generic picture from a photo library. And I don't know about you, but I think that guy just looks a little bit too happy being in hospital. So it's that sort of thing. And when you're really trying to appeal to people and make them feel that it's relevant to them and their role, think about the photographs, because the wrong image can really just put people off. Sometimes photography isn't always appropriate. Sometimes it's difficult to get people from around the world, or maybe you've got sort of certain situations or scenes that would be difficult to photograph. And that's where really using illustration can come in. It can really just sort of bring the module to life. And in this example, this is for the UN, it's their One Voice campaign. And we had people from around the world. And what we did is we illustrated them representing the world fairly. And then they took you through sections of the e-learning module. So wherever you were in the world, you knew that at some point you were going to get someone that kind of represented you. But besides doing illustrations, you can also use illustrations as a navigational interface, because that can help aid memory. In this example here for HM Treasury, we came up with the concept of HM Treasury Street. And what you could do is you could navigate around this module and click onto the different sections on the street and learn more. So there's different ways you can do that. I'd like to also just cover some supplementary things to e-learning, or things used in conjunction with e-learning, which can be very powerful. The first one is an online notebook. In this example here, as you go through the e-learning module, you get asked reflection notes or reflection questions. And you're supposed to then just fill it in on your online notebook. Now you can do this, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Articulate Storyline, but it's actually a tool with an Articulate Storyline. So as you go through, You can do your notes, and at the end you can print them out, so you have them as a sort of a job aid when you finish. So that's really quite useful. The other thing is online workbooks. In this example here, they're being asked to keep track of their favorite case studies that they've seen in the e-learning, and then what it is they liked about the case studies. They could rate them, and they could also just think about, well, how does that apply to me in my job, in my daily job? So there's just two things you can think about to help supplement your courses.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the food analogy for a second. And I'm going to ask you how much food you think you ate last year. And I'm thinking, how much in weight did you eat? Any thoughts on that? You can shout out if you want. I've got some... Did somebody say a gram then? You're anorexic, you've got a problem. We actually... There's some studies been done by... This is actually an American agricultural society or something. They found that we ate a ton of food in a year. This is American, so it might be a little bit less for us. A ton of food. I think that sounds like a lot, but I find it hard to visualize it. So I've tried it in a different way. 1 ton is the equivalent of 1,451 loaves of bread. If you work that out, that's 4 loaves of bread every day. That's a lot of food. 1,814 pints of soup. I don't know if you can imagine eating that much in 1 year. 12,700 hot dogs. That's how much food a ton is. Or 1 million pieces of pasta if you like bolognese. Which incidentally, if you lined them all up, I've spent a lot of time doing some maths, right? And if you line them all up, it would take you from here, where we are today, beyond Birmingham. So I like thinking of these things this way. Why am I telling you this? Well, because I think that's quite a lot. And I want you to imagine now, it's the beginning of the year. It's January the 1st. Your name is Dan? Dan. Imagine I come to you on January the 1st and I say, Dan, I know you're going to need 12,700 hot dogs this year. I know you're going to need that many. So here you go. Here they all are. What are you going to say to me? It's just too much. Too much, right? You cannot eat that much. Even if you liked hot dogs. You can't eat that much. Of course you can't. And I might say, but I know you're going to need them all this year, so can you just try? And you're like, no, of course I'm not going to try. It's revolting, can't eat that much. And you're probably going to think, okay, I know I'm going to need this much this year, but I'm not going to eat them all in one go. I might say to you, okay, I get it. You are going to eat them all, but you're not going to have them all at once. I think I've made my point with what I'm trying to get to here. The point is, like eating, we cannot eat this much. And with information and e-learning, we also can't eat this much. So I propose thinking about chunking. And chunking is taking very large topics and making it much, much smaller, more digestible and easier to understand. The brain can process chunks much more easily and much more quickly, and when we talk about chunks, we talk about sort of sessions from about 5 to 20 minutes, depending on the kind of organisation you are and the type of people and audience that you're working with. That's great for us because it's easier to fit that into a working day. If you're a training manager and people are tight for time, a smaller piece is better than a longer piece. Taking them off the shop floor for less time, you're not actually interrupting their day so much. They might even be willing to do it in their lunch break if they're office based. It's more likely to be applied. How many of you have done something and then thought, that'd be brilliant, and then forgotten about it because there were just too many things to remember, too much to apply? If you give people something small to take away with them, they're much more likely to apply it. And it's faster to produce and roll out. Great news. If you're launching a new product, you don't have to wait so long to get your e-learning out there. So here's a quick example of a couple of chunks. I'm going to try and use this pointer. Do you see how many pages there are here in this module? 6. 6 pages. How many of you have got e-learning? That's 56 pages. Lots of us, right? I hear a sigh of relief when I see that. Just 6 pages. Very, very tightly focused e-learning on a small, focused subject can be very effective. And here's another example for another client where this one was just 5 minutes and it was structured into 3 different sections. A watch section where you watch a quick video, a reflect section so that it's not just a passive experience, people have got to do something afterwards with that, and a do section. And this was really nice because it meant that you could take stuff offline, download it, and go and try it with your team. You don't have to just do it by yourself. You might want to try and interact with other people to do that. So that's chunking.
Okay, well, the next topic actually is eating anywhere, multi-device e-learning. So I just want you to stop and think about all the places that you eat. So often if you're busy in a car, you might snack on something in the car, or if you're at your desk, you might have a bowl of soup, or maybe looking at something on your laptop. Or maybe when you're out and about and you're feeling particularly pious and healthy, you might have an apple as you're walking along. Or if you've got time, you might sit down and have a really nice long meal with a glass of wine and just spend some nice restaurant time. So it really very much depends on our circumstances and how much time we have. And that's very similar with e-learning. You can consume learning on multiple devices. Now, obviously, the growing sectors, as we all know, are smartphones and tablets. The traditional sector has been laptops and desktops. But I'd also like to highlight probably that the tablets have seen a huge growth, and they're really growing very fast now, just because the prices come down. But I'm just curious to do a poll. How many of you have all 4 of these devices? Raise your hand. It is a learning technology show. Yeah, so there's quite a few, and it's becoming quite common to have all of these. And I expect you all use them differently, and probably spend different times on them. So let's now have a look at that. How long do we spend on devices? Now, Google did some very interesting research in August 2012. This did relate to consumer behaviors, and they did an analysis on how long we spend on 4 primary devices. So the first one was a smartphone, which was 17 minutes. I have to say, that surprised me. That was a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. With tablets, it's 30 minutes, so we spend longer on there. With a PC or a laptop, we're happy to spend 39 minutes. And with television, they use that as a device, it was 43 minutes. So what can we learn from that? Well, really, the smaller the device, the less time we spend on it. I think that's the key message there. But what does this really mean then for e-learning? Well, if you're looking at smartphones, you're going to be looking at more shallow learning. You're going to be looking at just in time. You're just about to go out to a meeting and you need to find some information. It's probably going to be reactive, or you might be in a panic. If you're thinking about sitting at your desktop, or maybe your laptop, it will probably be more deep learning, just in case you need it. Probably a little bit more proactive and preparing, so for preparation. So if you're thinking about using multi-devices, here are some things that you ought to be considering. I think the first question I would ask is, how complex is your content? You have to remember that a lot of content, a lot of complex graphics will not work well on a smartphone. So you need to think about keeping it simple. You need to come back to the chunking. If you're planning for lots of interactions, you have to remember that a lot of the tablets and mobile phones do not use flash. So you're going to have to do interactions using other technologies, and usually there's a bit of a limitation on what you can have. And are there any bandwidth considerations? Sometimes we work with clients in very remote locations. If there are, you're going to want to avoid using video or voiceover, which really eat up a lot of bandwidth. So those are just some things to think about if we're going across all different devices. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the new technology ADAPT framework. I don't know if you've heard about this at the show at all, but ADAPT framework, we're working with the ADAPT community, which is Keelio, Learning Pool, and ourselves, and we all got together. We were all working independently on a multi-device tool that could work across all different devices. We set up this community and set up an open source project so that we would share our knowledge, and all developers in the UK are working together on the ADAPT framework, which has been released for this show. And what it enables you to do is to create one version of e-learning to be deployed to many devices. Now, the reason why that's more complex than, say, if you like to look on the BBC on your iPhone or tablet or on your PC or laptop, the reason why it's more complex is that in e-learning we have interactions to keep it engaging. But when it comes to, when we're doing e-learning, we need to make it engaging. So with BBC, usually it tends to be more kind of flat reading, that sort of information. So the technology is a lot more complicated. So we've got together, we've created the ADAPT framework, And this is an open source tool. It's going to be available, it's much like how Moodle is. This is going to be an open source tool that we worked on all together. And the nice thing is that when you create the content, you can adapt to any screen, so it's readable. You can adapt the interactions, as I've mentioned, for smaller devices. You can adapt the design to be deployed on many devices. And it's all SCORM compliant. Sometime over the next year, there's going to be an authoring tool front end. So if, say, one of us creates the e-learning, you'll be able to update it, or you'll be able to create it yourself. So it's really, really exciting. If you're interested in seeing a demo, it's on stand 154 if you want to have a look at that. Okay, I think over to you.
Okay, so we've talked about some variety and some chunking and some sort of where you eat, and this is the last of our sections, and I just want to talk about marketing and how you kind of promote these ideas, because often internally we have e-learning, but how does it kind of get to people so that they want to take it? Hopefully we don't have to wear sandwich boards like this poor guy. So the question on people's minds is, how do I know what's on offer anyway? And I want to just share two anecdotes. The first is, this picture here on the left is McDonald's in Plymouth. This is where I grew up. The first time I ever went to a McDonald's was when my mum, my good mum, you may know that Sponge is a family business. She's from America, I am not. I, at 9 years old, had never been to McDonald's, never heard of it, didn't know what it was. She took us, me and my sisters, to McDonald's, and we tried it, and we were converts from the moment we went there. Why do I tell you that? Because if someone takes you there and you try it, you know about it after that, don't you? Good promotion. The second anecdote is from now, where I live right now. Something came through the letterbox the other day. It was a takeaway menu. I think this looks tasty, but you might think that looks horrible. It's some kind of bibimbap or something, I'm not sure. The menu, yeah, I get a lot of these. Normally they go straight into recycling. This one said, healthy Asian. I thought, that's good, isn't it? January, healthy Asian. And sure enough, in a moment of weakness on probably the 2nd of January, preparing probably for this talk when I was exhausted, I thought, I know, I'll give them a ring. And I tried it because it was appealing enough. So that the message there is, something came to me, they found me, they had the right message, it resonated, and it was appealing enough for me to bother with it. And converted to there now, stopped going to McDonald's. So when it comes to communications, lots of people say to us, how do we get our learners to do the stuff? How do they get them to know? And I say, start with what is already working for you, because you've probably got more channels than you think you do, and it's a really encouraging place to begin with. And when I get clients to brainstorm about what's already working for them, they usually say, oh, actually, yeah, we've got that newsletter, oh, we could put something in there, yeah, and the intranet, yeah, we could put something on that too, and we've got the notice boards, yeah, we could, and suddenly they come up with this list of all these channels that they've already got, that are already working. And so the first thing I would do if you did want to think about marketing internally is just brainstorm out your channels, because it can be very cheap and easy to repurpose maybe a little design or graphic from the e-learning that's been produced and put it out into those places. And I just want to talk about learning campaigns, because for me personally, I think this is one of the most exciting areas of where e-learning is kind of at and maybe going. And we've done a few, so I'll give you some case studies too in a minute. But this quote here, think of learning as a process and not as a one-time event. This is a quote from Carl Kapp, who's an instructional design technologist from Bloomsburg University, and a really great thinker. And his kind of whole approach is that we want to be trying to embed learning into everyday practice. Now we know that that's kind of the ultimate thing to be doing, but within the scope of e-learning, what can we actually do to try and make it more regular, to repeat the message, to get the message out there again, to then do the learning? So the way I like to think about this is a kind of tasting menu, which is convenient because the talk is about e-learning is like eating, so you see what I've done there. Of course, if you've ever had a tasting menu, they still go in the set structure. You get your appetizer, you get your main course, and you get your dessert. But there's usually lots of little things inside each one. So that's kind of the way I introduce learning campaigns to people. And it's like learning as a process over time, so stretched out. So what can you have at each section? So for example, in appetizers, this might be some of your communications and promotional type stuff. So here we're looking at things like posters, emails, microsites, on those channels that we just brainstormed a minute ago. For the main dishes, this is a kind of the substantial things. This is where you're really building the capabilities. So it might be your short chunked modules. This might be quizzes, this might be workbooks. It also might include face-to-face training, so your blended activities could be in the main dishes. And for dessert, I like to think of this as after you've had the kind of substantial part of the meal, you've gone off back into your job, and this is where you might need this performance support. So we've got job aids, we've got subject updates. This is talking about keeping it fresh all the time. And how do you get that compliance knowledge when the law changes out to people? Well, maybe a simple email will do it. So I'm going to give you 2 case studies and then I'm going to finish. This is a case study for the United Nations Population Fund. And what we came up with here was a campaign, and it had the name. It was called Speaking with One Voice. So it had a kind of branded title, a consistent look and feel across everything. And for the appetizer for them, they had some posters. For the main dish, they had an e-learning module and a face-to-face afternoon. And for their dessert, the kind of performance support piece, they had a mobile-ready site. And this was going out to people who were frequently confronted with the media and having to make sure that wherever they were in the world, they were giving the same message every time, telling it the same way. And so before they would go into a press conference, that was the purpose of the mobile-ready site on the end there. And the next example I want to talk about is a big project that we've just rolled out for Tesco. And if any of you got the Learning magazine, there's a 3-page kind of full case study in there if you'd like to look at it. But essentially we came up, it was a compliance rollout that needed to happen by the end of the year, last year. And previous e-learning had not been particularly exciting or interesting. And so when Tesco came to us, they said, how can we kind of make this interesting? They had loads of good ideas themselves for what they wanted to do. And we said, okay, we'll go away and have a think about it. We came up with this name, the Learning Leap, which was, the idea was that everybody who had to take it jumped out of the plane and had to get to target. So all of us were kind of there together. It had a little brand. It had a consistent look and feel. And inside their campaign, they had, for appetizers, posters to get the message out there, emails, so letting people know that this was coming, dotted ahead of the launch. They had some face-to-face forums, and they had their own intranet, so we put a graphic up on their intranet, so there was lots of little bits and places to access what was happening and get the message out. For the main dish, they had their 3 short modules. They were in the 3 compliance areas. They were between 18 and 20 minutes, so quite short. They were refresher style. And also emails, and this was completely innovative. I don't know where else this has been done, but each week, because they used our learning management system as well, we were able to take the data, find out who'd started, hadn't started, and had completed in every single category, and send an email out to the directors of those categories to say, these people have started, these people haven't, these people need to do it. And they also had the emails of their users inside that email, so they could then just straight away send to them and say, guys, go and do it, because we need to finish this by November. And we saw a spike like this. Every Monday we would send this email, and the LMS would get hammered, because all these people would be like, crap, I've got to do this, let's get on there, and they'd go and take it. It really, really worked. And we had a 97% completion rate for this campaign. It took just over a month, about a month to do. So we think it was really successful. And the dessert part in their campaign is PIPS, and this is also something that we've devised ourselves, which stands for putting into practice. And what we're doing with that is sending out updates via email, letting people know what's changed. It might be a quiz, and it can also be looped back into the LMS. So over a course of time, we're beginning to collect information about what people are remembering and what knowledge people retain. And it's been a very different approach to compliance, so it's quite exciting. I'm quite excited about it. So that finishes up campaigns. I will hand back to my mum for the summary.
Now, I just want to clarify that I don't take her to McDonald's anymore. We've got over that phase. I think just really in summary, just to wrap up, to say, think about varying your diet, think about how you can use video, photography, illustration. Can you be using any kind of online notebooks or workbooks? And don't feed your learners too much, get chunky. Consider where your staff consume learning to aid your strategy for multi-devices. And finally, promote your menu. People aren't going to know about it. Think about marketing campaigns. Think about anything that's important, any important training. What can you do to help promote it, to market it, and to really make sure that everyone knows about it. So to finish, if anyone's interested in chatting anymore, you can come to us on stand 145, which is over there. If you'd like a copy of our presentation, if you can complete your evaluation form, that would be terrific. And the other thing is, if anyone's interested in ADAPT, you can win a responsive e-learning module created in ADAPT. So do come over, and if you want to enter the competition, you can do that as well. But thank you very much for your time.